Hey, what's up, garden friends? How's everybody doing? I hope you're good. I am great. I'm dealing with some cold damage on my plants. Also, the area I'm working with, there's no room for a tripod, so I apologize if the video's a little bit shaky. Just kind of have to go with the flow here on this one. There's not much I can do about it, so sorry about that. If you're subscribed, if you watch my videos, you'll know about a month ago we had a random cold snap that did a lot of damage. It was predicted to be in the lower 40s at nighttime and then was supposed to bounce back up and be warm, and instead it dropped down to about 28 degrees. And well, there's what happened with that. I did lose a couple of orchids, but overall, what's left, everything else, it doesn't look great. They don't look fantastic, but they're alive. This particular palm, this is Adenitia Morellii, the Christmas palm. It's one where I'm still kind of like, I'm not so sure. I'm gonna have to wait and see what happens there. But I thought I'd go through here and kind of touch on what I've been doing with some of these, sort of trying to clean them up and save their lives, mostly my Ficus Lyrata. Like with all of my crotons down here, I've gone through, I pruned them up. They lost a lot of their foliage, which they actually tend to do when I bring them inside anyways. I'm not great about acclimating them to lower light, so when I bring them in, they just kind of go, ugh, drop their leaves, and then resprout new ones, and they're fine. But I did go through and I cut any tips back that had any type of give to them. You can sort of see over there in the center, I'll zoom in, but it might be blurry, the green tips that are on some of the parts. Those were ones that I didn't need to prune. I basically just pruned back until I found nice, firm, woody growth on them that, like I said, didn't have any give to it. Normal, healthy plant growth. The Adenitias, I haven't pruned off the dead foliage yet because there's still some bits of green in there, mainly along the stem of the palm fronds, and so, which means that the little bits of green that are left in their leaves, that chlorophyll's still doing its thing. It can still take some energy down into the plant and provide something to it. If the canopy was more heavy, I would do some more pruning, and I do think I am going to go in and prune a little bit off, but not too much, because that doesn't have a lot going on there as far as chlorophyll goes. So it needs the chlorophyll's in there to help the plant grow. It's what gives the plant the ability to turn UV rays, sunlight, into energy. So that's what that's about. I'm going to leave those for now. But my main focus here is actually my Ficus Lyrata. It really did not do well with this cold, which isn't really surprising. Also, I know the lighting's a little bit harsh. I had to just kind of rig something up so I'd be able to see this for the camera, and I'm going to leave some of these lights. Actually, I'll be changing them out with more appropriate grow lights, but for now what I need to do is I need to get in here. You can see where they defoliated completely up along their stems, so I'm going to come in, I'm going to cut those, and I'm going to cut them until I see leaves that seem healthy and viable. So this leaf right here, I know doesn't look great. Most of them just look absolutely terrible. See how that one pulled right off? That's bad. Don't want that. This one's okay. If that one came right off, there's no green left in that piece. So I know that I can cut this guy until at least right here. Doing my best to check the inside of the stem there, make sure that it's firm. There's no mush in there. This leaf right here is holding on fairly tight, so I think that one's okay. All right, another one just fell off from down below. That's not great. Up here on this trunk, gonna go ahead and cut right above that leaf. This one a little bit harder to get out, but again, there's no mush, no give, so I think that's okay. And then let's see over here, how's this branch doing? It feels hollow. Yeah, and see how that leaf popped right off and there's no green in there? So I know that I'm gonna need to cut that branch back fairly far. Still have these guys pulling off of that stem. I can see right here, this looks like a, well, looks can be deceiving, can't they? Yeah, all right, so maybe that stem's gone. I don't know, we'll find out. Generally, in something like this, I would keep cutting until I see some green, and there is a little bit of green in there. It's gonna be really hard to get that to show up on camera because the lighting is so terrible over here, but there's a small green ring in there. So that's good. I also can see where leaves have snapped off of the trunk. And another thing I'm trying to pay attention to is the firmness of the trunk. I want to make sure that the bark is firm all the way down, that there's nothing loose and slippy. If you've ever had like maybe a standard hibiscus, a lot of people just buy those fairly cheap, grow them as an annual. When those are done, when it's been too cold for them, their trunks, you can feel the bark on them. They have a give to them. You can sort of slide it around a little bit. And that's not the case with this one. And these leaves right here are holding on fairly firm. Any leaf that's just popping right off, I'm taking it off. Because I want to make sure that the I want to make sure that the light is getting to the leaves that actually are doing something, that are transporting to the plant. If they pop right off, they have these brown ends on them. Again, probably not showing up on camera very well. But if they pop off like that, then they're not transporting anything into the plant. Now, it's possible I may end up cutting this entire thing back to just trunk in here. Hopefully not, but it is looking like that might be the case. I'm going through, pulling on them. Some of them I am going to go ahead and leave just like for the experiment's sake, but see how some of them just fall right off? The ones that just fall right off, they're done. I don't want to take all of them though, because like I was mentioning with the Adenidiopalm, they still have some chlorophyll in them, but if they're not actually doing anything, if they're not moving into the plant, there's no circulation to them, then that doesn't really matter. Okay, and then so here's one of the issues with the Ficus Lyrata, these Fiddle Leaf Figs, is that their leaves tend to pop off fairly easily as it is. And here's one that snapped off when it didn't need to. Again, I'm so sorry about the lighting, but this one didn't need to come off, but I very lightly touched it and it came off, which it shouldn't do in a healthy plant, but I'd say it's fairly obvious that we're not really looking at a healthy plant right now. So the nice thing about this, I mean, if I'm trying to be positive here and optimistic, is that I know that the trunk is still alive. It's still doing its thing. These two leaves right here are holding on nice and firm, which is fantastic, because what that means is that even though up here things may not be going so great, obviously, there's still life in the plant. And eventually, hopefully, it'll bud out, sprout out, and do its thing again. Again, I've made another cut in here, small green ring, so I know that that's a good spot. There was a little bit of green up on top there, so I will leave that. And then up here in the top of that branch, there was a little bit of green, so I'll leave that there for now. No reason to cut it out if it's still doing its thing. And then for the sake of airflow and just kind of trying to get this done, my Monstera lost a leaf, 2 leaves actually, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut those out also. Oh, and real quick, I forgot to mention something really important. When making cuttings on wood, especially in plants that's vulnerable, it's good to go ahead and seal that off. Usually I would use something like cinnamon, but instead right now I've just used, it's not going to show up. I've gone ahead, I've put just a little bit of wax on these tips. I burnt a candle, blew it out, let it melt a little bit till it cooled, safe to the touch. I put that on there, let it dry, and that's going to seal it off, keep anything from getting in there. Oh, and I also don't know if I mentioned, but I did make sure to sterilize my pruners. I just used rubbing alcohol, but I made sure they were nice and clean before I went in and started pruning this back. So ultimately what I've done here is I've just opened things up. The air can move through a little bit better now, and what I want to do is encourage this to put out new growth. Got a lot of leaves off of there. Not that I was aiming for that, but it's just sort of the way that went. So sometimes with plants that like a lot of water, I'll go ahead and I'll actually drill holes in the sides of the pots if it's not like a fancy decorative pot that I'm not concerned about making it look bad. With the Fiddle Leaf Fig, I'm not going to do that. I don't think it's necessary. I think it will stress the plant out. It doesn't seem like a great idea. But here's what I am going to do. I'm going to go ahead and water this very, very, very thoroughly. See, I've set the pot up on top of a milk crate to allow good airflow under there. The reason I did that is so that I can make sure that I can water this very, very often, because that's what they prefer, and not have to worry about it sitting in its water or any type of root rot, which could already be going on just from the cold. Yeah, I'm just going to absolutely drench this. I want to make sure that that soil's soaking wet right now. Now I'm going to fertilize. I'm starting off just using the Espoma Organic Start. This fertilizer has lots and lots and lots of good stuff in there to help promote good root growth, all types of good bacteria, fungi type things. Give that a good shake, tilt it, let that reservoir fill up, and then I'm going to give it probably 4 gallons of water, so 4 doses right here. Now, the only thing about this fertilizer is that it's not very heavy on the nitrogen. Not heavy at all, actually. So I'm going to use this probably just once a week for the next couple of weeks, and then I'm going to go ahead and step it up, bounce it up with a heavy nitrogen fertilizer. The reason that I'm doing it that way is because I want to make sure that there's good root recovery. I basically don't want to burn any tender roots with a fertilizer that has a lot of nitrogen in it. Just trying to be careful there. With other plants, like with these Adenidiopalms, I did use a systemic fungicide, like an all-in-one treatment kind of thing, just to be safe, to help treat it, make sure that there's nothing, no pathogens, anything going on from their roots and decay that's happening, traveling up into the trunks of the palm, and then vice versa from, I don't want the bud rot and all of those things. Ficus, however, are notorious for being sensitive to pesticides, and I don't really like to use a lot of chemicals in here anyways, so with heavy chemicals, pesticides, fungicides, all of those things. I'm going to hold off for now and just keep a close eye on it. If I notice any signs of decay or rot, then I'll go ahead and do some mild dosing, enough where it's still effective, but hopefully not going to hurt the plant. I'm also going to make sure with this one sad little leaf to keep it clean. I don't want too much dust or anything collecting on there. Oh wait, there's more than one leaf. Yeah, there's other survivors down there. I need to keep them clean. You can see where they started to sort of die off a little bit. They've lost that nice glossy sheen to them, but they'll be okay. Eventually they'll drop, but my main thing is I'm just glad that there's something on there to absorb some sunlight or light bulb light to absorb some of the UV rays and transfer that energy into the plant and hopefully encourage it to start budding out and growing again. This is not the ideal time of year for this. It's winter right now, or it's not winter, it's fall, but it feels like winter here. And they don't like it. It's not going to be great. I don't have super hot conditions for it, but here in this grow room, I'm generally able to keep things fairly warm and fairly humid. That's going to make a big difference for this. So I don't know. Fingers crossed. It may all be for nothing. I don't know. I picked this guy up for like $39.99, or maybe it was $45 from Home Depot, which is an absolute steal because I think all y'all plant people out there know the price on these have gone way, way, way up over the years. I still want to do what I can do to try and save it, but if it dies, I'm not going to be heartbroken. But I thought I'd go ahead, talk about some of the things I do to help protect them, assess whether or not they're dead or alive. Just all the little details, the thought processes that go into when I'm evaluating the cold damage on a plant and doing what I can do to see if I can revive it and bring it back. I forgot to mention the reason I made sure to absolutely drench the soil before putting the fertilizer in there was because I wanted the fertilizer to stick. I didn't want to fertilize it and have that run out. And this soil was too dry. These do not like to dry out, not for very long at least, like for a very short period of time. They don't want to be sopping wet either. They shouldn't be in standing water, which is why there's that milk crate under there, just to allow the plant. I wanted to get this set up in a way where I can water it very frequently. I think that's going to be what's best for it. So that's what that's about. I had let it dry out a little bit. Same thing with the palms, because I was trying to make sure that I wasn't keeping it sopping wet when there could be some root decay and things going on in the bottom of the pots from the cold damage, and then rot and fungus and mold and things like that happening in the pots. So that's what that was about. But from this point on, it will be staying evenly moist pretty much all the time. I'm also going to be watching the humidity, like I mentioned before. That entire area over there where I have the anthyrums down there, and then I have this nepenthes over here that's going to be moved over there in the lower sections where I'm going to be trying to keep that humidity up, so that will help a lot with that plant. I'm not going to try and make sure the entire area is super humid because I also have these spindle palms in the back, which also pretty much defoliated from the cold, but see where I had to cut those branches off there from them defoliating from the cold. But their fronds are popping open and looking pretty good, so that is very reassuring. Hopefully over time we'll see some new growth start to pop out of this trunk. I don't know. Can't say for sure, but doing what I can to make it happen. The fertilizing on a pretty regimented schedule is really important in a situation like this because, as I've mentioned, the plant it doesn't have the foliage, doesn't have the chlorophyll, doesn't have the green leaves to convert the UV rays into energy for the plant to encourage it to grow. It doesn't have that right now, so it's going to need some help. This is mostly a product that encourages the roots to grow really well, and therefore encouraging the plant to do really well. It encourages the roots in the area around the roots, I should say, to break down organics more efficiently. Then they get converted to nitrogen, and it's just a nice natural organic way of doing things. But like I said, I'm only doing that for a couple weeks. I'm gonna have to break out the big guns for this guy, and I'm gonna be making sure to use the fertilizer that has a decent amount of nitrogen in it, and I want to make sure it's well balanced, of course. So I'm gonna use something that's more of an all-purpose fertilizer, but instead of fertilizing it like once a month, if even, I normally wouldn't even fertilize it that often in the winter time, not in my grow area the way things are in here. I'll be doing it weekly. And I water with this aquaponics water, which I know it looks dirty. It's not dirty. That's called black water. It's because I put leaves in here that actually they tinge the water, but they add lots of good stuff to the water. Lots of minerals and things like that, and antimicrobial effects. It's nice, nutrient-rich water. It does run through a UV sterilizer. That helps prevent if there is any type of fungus or something in here that could spread to the plant. It helps make sure that that's eliminated. All right, I have quite the mess to clean up out here. Thanks for hanging out while I nerd out, talk about some of the things, the cold damage, the things going on with those plants and what I need to do to revive them, things that are helpful, hopefully, to other people out there. Maybe you know, cold damage happens. It's a thing. Weather is increasingly unpredictable, and it's just, you know, we don't normally have 28-degree freezes where I live in October. Like, that doesn't happen, but well, it did this year. Oh, you know what? It's an experience to learn and grow from. I hope everybody's doing well. Don't forget to leave the video a thumbs up. It helps the channel a lot, helps the videos a ton, and I really do appreciate it. So thank you very, very much for doing that. And don't forget to subscribe. I upload multiple times a week. Don't forget to click that notification bell also. That way you know when new videos come out. I have my social media linked down below, down there in the description of the video. I'm mostly on Instagram, which is just Tropical Plant Party, so follow me there. I follow you back. It's fun looking at everybody's pictures. Everybody's doing well, having a wonderful day, wonderful evening, just a wonderful, beautiful life. As always, and most importantly, everybody, keep on growing. Bye-bye.